Hello, everyone, and welcome to the adorkable anarchist world here on the Voluntary Virtues Network. I am currently redoing the place. That way you guys don't have to look at my bed and the cat in the background all the time. But until I have this all worked out, enjoy half of the ANCAP flag with the half of the good quarter of the peace symbol down there. Anyways, I got two things to talk about today. And I don't know how I'm going to talk about both of these in a matter of 30 minutes, because I can go on for longer about both these subjects. Well, the first one, originally I was going to talk about Gustav Le Bon's The Crowd in this episode, but I'm no longer doing that because something happened last week that really, how do I say it? Well, I'm going to start off by saying I used to be a street artist, and I never really did do any big, extravagant graffiti pieces. The best thing I've done is a few tags, but I did shitloads of stickers. I made tons of stickers that are probably still all over Sunrise, hopefully. I have no clue. I'm going back down there in a few days, so I'll be interested to see if any of my work is still up down there, but as a former street artist, it's easier to spot when art things are being done. And in the case of the mainstream media reporting on this first story, I was so disappointed that they missed the point. Of course, the media does what they do. They're spin doctors, basically. They can spin anything, they can remix any type of story into anything they want. And that's exactly what they did in this story's case. Sometime last week, I don't remember what day it was, but overnight, a group of artists, I say a group because I don't think someone could have done this on their own, went on the Brooklyn Bridge, took down the American flags, and put up white bleached American flags. And the media has been using this as an opportunity to call for higher security. And it's really ironic because the first thing I got out of this was freedom fading, because these are bleached American flags. Or surrender, if some of you want to look at it like that too. But either way, it showed one thing, that this America is no longer the America that we started off with, which I believe it was never good, but that's a whole other story. But using this as an excuse to call for security, it's that example that I brought up before on one of the earlier podcasts. It's like saying that The Giver is an anti-teen rebellion book. It makes no sense. But the message that was clearly trying to be stated in this was an anti-American one. So they're trying to spin it in the way that it is. And when I first see white flags, the first thing I see is like little pieces of the American flag in there, is that freedom has faded from this land. And, you know, it was amazing because like they made it sound like it was some terrorist act in the news. And at the end of the story, they finally said, oh, yeah, this probably wasn't a terrorist act. This is probably some elaborate art heist. Well, no shit. No fucking shit. And, you know, first thing that I wondered also when I saw this was, could this be the work of Banksy? And if any of you don't know who Banksy is, he's an anti-capitalist street artist who, although I might have his gripes with his political views, I read his book, and when it comes to his views on art, I do agree with him on a lot. And the reason why I first thought it was him was because recently he had relocated to New York. And, you know, not long after that, NYPD declared war on Banksy. As if you can declare war on an artist. But say what you will about damaging private property, that's a whole other debate. But for the street artist, this is like major. This is like when Mark Echo graffiti bombed Air Force One before he sold out. Like, this is fucking amazing. Whoever did this, Banksy or whoever. The only reason why I guess Banksy is for those points that I just brought up before, but whoever did this, mad props, because they clearly sent a good message. And if anything, more people I meet aren't thinking about security when discussing this, but surrender or freedom fading are the two most common things I hear people getting out of this. So But if there are any people out there who think that we need more security on the Brooklyn Bridge because there's a bridge that's already swarming with cameras that I'm sure has guards there a good amount of the time, if you really think that you need less freedom for the sake of security, your freedom's already gone, buddy. And you know, they act like it's so impressive, but street artists, we're like, we get good at dodging these sort of things. We're good at dodging cameras. Like, one video that you'll find if you look around on the web is a sky view camera where you can see the light on top of the bridge go out sometime in the middle of the night. And that was the time when they put up the white flags. And once again, very smart, taking out the lights like that. You don't want any evidence left behind that could show who you are. So whoever did this clearly was really skilled and clearly has had a history. And all I can guess is street art, because that's what I have my most experience in. And this seems like the type of thing that a street artist would do, the type of stunt that someone would pull. Because it has the type of lasting impact that while it might not stay there forever, people will remember it. At least I hope people will remember it. All right, so on to the next subject of today that I said I was going to talk about last week. And that subject is education. And oh man, could I go on forever about this one. Mainly due to the fact that I have been to every type of educational structure there is, even homeschooling to an extent. Even though I never really went the full step and did homeschooling, I did do some online classes. And you know, I'm just going to start off from the beginning of all this, as far as back as I can remember. When I was young, I went to a Greek Orthodox school where they were very when I was really young, I was really fascinated with meditation and stuff, and I knew nothing about it. Like, I was just trying to discover all this shit on my own. Like I was a really, really young kid, and I tried, like, experimenting with that a few times. At first, they were kind of like, dude, we better not screw with this because I don't know if this is family's religious thing. But once they found out my family wasn't into meditation or anything, they got very strict on me with that. And that's one way that schools kind of reinforce this hierarchical structure that we'll come to know about in the coming years when we grow up, is they teach us young that the hierarchy above us dictates our life. And after that, I didn't stay there for that long because my family wasn't Greek Orthodox. We were Roman Catholic. I mean, to them, as long as you're not anything not Christian, they don't care. They just want that paycheck. But to move on out from there, I then went to charter school after that, where, holy crap, the corruption there was insane. Let me think. The principal stole tons of money from the school, including computers. The teachers there did not teach at all. They always had their college assistants do it. Like, it was a complete joke of a school, and probably the only thing that I could really say notable from that whole experience was, and I know a lot of people aren't going to believe me when I say this, but fuck it, I'm just going to say it. I knew Eminem's daughter. I saw her every day on the way to school. I just didn't know she was Eminem's daughter until after I left the school. Go figure. All right, to move on is Montessori, which is possibly the best libertarian method of learning, in my opinion, because you're teaching it to yourself. You're learning this all on your own. If you're not familiar with Maria Montessori's work, I highly recommend going and looking into it. It is very great. Unfortunately, the woman who ran the Montessori school I went to never really looked into her work and probably just skimmed it because she missed out on so much. And if anything, she just serves as another symbol of what taught me about hierarchy in my normal everyday life. And I'll tell you, if anything, it kind of taught me about debt, too, because one thing about the Maria Montessori method is you're given a list of things to do. And you're supposed to do these things and learn it either on your own or with help of others. And this is all done completely voluntarily. Well, I shouldn't say voluntarily. You're there and you're supposed to do the list. And if you don't finish the list by the end of the week, at most normal schools, they would do a thing where you wouldn't get recess time or something. You'd sit it out. Like something that would make sense that would teach you, okay, if I finish this, I'll be able to see my friends or something. It makes sense. In the case for this one, they would confine you to your desk, making it harder for you to finish that list of work you have to do, just making more and more work piling onto that list. That's a lot like debt. That's really a lot like taking on debt. And man, it's amazing how the things when you're young can teach you about hierarchy and a much greater world in front of you. And next came to another charter school, which at first started off really good, but eventually the city consumed it, if you will. It was not the best institution. Once the first principal left, the place went downhill and became your typical inner city school, which was really depressing too, because like it had a lot of hope. A lot of the teachers there really did care about what they did. So I don't know what happened with a lot of those, but from what I've heard since I've left that said one, it's not been that great and good. My one viewer is gone. Wonderful, but anyways, another thing that happened there was my music teacher ended up being a pedophile, but that's a whole other story. Once again, our wonderful school systems out there, because education today across the board is just a fucking joke. All right, so from there, I eventually moved down here to Florida, and that's when the best one comes in, which, before I go on and talk about this, I want to say the guys from Christianarchy, if they ever want to talk to me about this, I would love to go into deeper discussion going to what I'm about to discuss. But the next one is Baptist school, and man, are they there to crush your world views and build it up exactly carbon copied as what theirs is. And you know, it was funny because when I went into that school, I was more Gnostic. Like my ideals were definitely more Gnostic. They weren't like I didn't know what Gnostic meant, but like I look back on it all, and that was definitely more where I'd end up if I were to take a test back then. And wow, did they crushed everything I believed in just to, and you know, that was one of the things that they said, like God will bring you down just to rebuild you back up. And it's like, because that's totally the type of God I want to worship. But one thing that I do remember that really kind of made me turn my head and think, okay, that's a little messed up. Even when they did brainwash me and indoctrinate me into the Baptist Christian faith. Mm-hmm. One thing that I did that I do remember was I said something about like, oh yeah, my the dog I had ever since I was a little kid died last year, but it's okay, he's in heaven now. Oh no, animals don't go to heaven. Animals are just God's creations. They don't matter. It's like, it's just such a closed-minded view on the world. And if anything, I consider this key school to be the main one that really drove me to that ideal of anarchism, of total freedom of the mind, the body, of everything around me. And from there, I did the summer in military school. Not much discussed there. 1 year in public, which was just absolutely fucking terrible. But I'll get to that later on because this is not my last experience in public. After that came private. And when it comes to private schools, it's really hit and miss because you have some good ones and some just really, really fucking bad ones. Like those Christian schools, for example. Those were private. And, you know, in the case for this private school, it was better, I will say that. Excuse me. My tea coming back to haunt me. But some things I will say that were nice. I did learn about a lot of things about psychology that I later went on to learn about from various other people there that I first heard there than I ever did here on the web from various of my co-hosts, either on this network or anywhere else in the podcast world. Like, what's the one experiment where the is it the Stanley Pilgrim experiment? I want to say it's that one, where the people all came in and they had to deliver the shocks to the person, and it was to show just how much they would obey authority. And I'm not going to go deep into the... I want to say it's the Stanley Pilgrim. If it's not, please correct me if I'm wrong. But that experiment, like just learning about that from that school alone, it was just nice to get something like that, and then to later come back to work like this and find myself relearning about all these. It was a good feeling, like maybe I actually did take something out of this experience. The only bad thing that I can complain about with this was almost getting suspended for saying the word ghetto. Let that sink in for a second. Ghetto. Yeah, apparently that's a new offensive word. just like cunt, bitch, fuck, shit, damn. All right. To move on, senior year is when I went back to public school, and that is where I finally said, fuck it, there's no hope for any public schools anywhere in America, because anyone I talked to that year, whether they lived in the state of Florida or not, anywhere I talked to, public schools just sounded fucking terrible. Aside from having hardcore statist teachers, most just didn't care about their work at all. A good number of them were just there for the money. Like, that was literally their only reason why they're there. And my feeling on life, and I know there's people who get caught in that hamster wheel doing something to hate in life, but in the case for something like education, you shouldn't drag the students down with you. Because the students are there to learn for the future. If you're stuck in this hamster wheel, this isn't the type of job you want to get stuck in it with, because you're a teacher. You're supposed to care about your job. Your job is to be the Socrates to their Plato, in a sense. That's the way I look at it. And, you know, it's depressing to see that there's teachers out there who really just don't care. And there were a few that did. I didn't have any of them. People had told me about them, but it's amazing how, it's another thing amazing about public school teachers is the way they play favorites. If you had gripes with other teachers at any of these other schools, they would try not to bring it into the classroom. They would try not to hurt you educationally wise. They might not like what you had said or something, but they wouldn't try and have it have backlash on you in an educational environment. In the case for public school, there was no ethics with that at all. The teachers would bring it into the environment, and they would call you out on shit. And, you know, that's just disappointing and unprofessional. I mean, look at it this way. There's nothing worse than having a teacher up there telling you all you have to act professional with the people you are working with in theater, and then turning around and talking shit about your best friend backstage before a show. So needlessly to say, state schools are just the bottom of the barrel. It doesn't, like, honestly, religious and state schools are both on the same level for me, but honestly, if I were to look at it again, state schools might be lower, because at least with the religious schools, a lot of the people genuinely believed what they were teaching. And even though it was a very wrong thing, and even though it was still a similar form of brainwashing, because really that's the only difference between, you know, the private religious school and the public state school. The public state school is brainwashing you with nationalism, while the private religious school is brainwashing you with religion. But at least the teachers there, they genuinely, like, if they had a gripe with you like they did with me with my views on evolution at first before they totally brainwashed me, but I'm back now, so don't worry, evolution's real. But they would generally try to keep it out of the classroom. With public schools, it was all fair season, open game, whatever you want to call it. But really, what have I learned from this experience of all these different various types of schoolings? And, you know, I can't really do like one big general answer on this, because really each one has its individual gripes. I mean, Maria Montessori, she pretty much painted the perfect learning methods, and yet you could still have someone like the principal from Montessori Stepping Stone there. I'll just fucking say that school that way. If you live in Michigan, you don't ever send your kids there. Yet you could still have people like the woman who worked there who pretty much wiped her ass with Maria Montessori's works. And it's really depressing to look at that. You have charter, which can be good, but of course you can still get that great corruption of people who work there. And of course the city around the school can of course soon come to consume it and break the spirits of even the most dedicated teachers. And public schools that's just like the lowest of the low. As I said before, it's pretty much teaching you a religion of nationalism. If this says anything, when I went to public school, at the time I worked as a pizza delivery driver, and I worked extremely late the night before. Like, so in days past, there have been days when I had tried to like turn my back on the flag to stir up conflict, but it never worked. Like, people would just look at me like I was weird. Never really. I was crazy anarchist guy as far as being concerned. But then this one day after work, I was just tired as fuck, did not feel like standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. And so I just remained seated, just with my head on the desk, like, I'm too tired to do this, just leave me alone. Somehow that landed me in the principal's office, even though it's been constitutionally proven that I'm allowed to not stand. And I ended up reaching an agreement with them there, because they're just there to break your spirits. Like, when I got in that office, they were pretty much telling me, your views don't matter. You should follow everyone, the rest of the herd, just to not stir up conflict. And so my way of kind of retaliating against that was 2 days later. 2 days later was Red, White, and Blue Day, because it was Spirit Week at school, I think. And I came all decked out in total black, just totally black blocked. Like, I'm not a black blocker at all, but by any regards. But if you had seen me that day, you would have thought it was pretty funny. But anyways, to get back on topic, religious schools are just social indoctrination. Public schools, some teachers don't give a fuck about nationalism. They'll just follow it because, oh, it's my job. With religious schools, they're genuinely really following what's in front of them. And they will socially indoctrinate you. They will find a way to break you. As I said before, one of the mottos that they had when I went there was, God will break me down just to build me back up. And I think that was the case with them, was they totally shattered my views on reality. Everything that I had come to know about life was just destroyed there. Like my words were, I believe in God, but I think evolution was his plan. Apparently that guaranteed me for hell, doomed to hell for all eternity. Which back then, hell was totally out of the question. Nowadays I look at it like, what kind of God would send anyone to hell to begin with? But that's a whole other question, which, by the way, once again, I want to say this again, the guys from Christianity. Seriously, I would love to talk with you guys about this. Because, honestly, I can talk more about religion than I can about, and spirituality. I shouldn't say religion, I'll say spirituality, because atheism, in a sense, isn't really a religion. I had a debate with someone about that at the public school as well. But yeah, that's just what it is, and it's just such a closed world view that it ends up really. There was another psychology experiment I remember, and this one I do not remember the name of, but it actually showed that the participants' reality. It had to do with conformity, the experiments, and it showed that the participants' reality was actively being altered on a neurological level. And I think that had a big part to do with why I eventually did give in, and I'll straight up say it, they broke me. As far as I'm concerned, I went through the Winston Smith experience with them, because that's the only school I've been to I was actively bullied by staff and students. Although they would try to keep it out of the classroom. It's only in every free time that we had that they would try and do it. And man, I don't know what else I can say about this experiment, these experiences, because at the end of the day, they all ended up being colossal failures of educational structures, because the people who ran them were just as corrupt as politicians. And, you know, I really don't want to trump up the case for homeschooling either, because in the case for homeschooling, what I came to learn was a lot more people who homeschool aren't, like, really smart intellectual people. They're these hardcore Bible fundamentalists, like the ones who went to the school that I went to. One kid in particular, I remember, the year after I left, went on to do homeschooling. And what can be said? Like, okay, well, I will say this. Psychology, philosophy, and ethics should be core things. And here are my reasons why. Psychology teaches us how we learn and what goes through our heads when we learn. Philosophy teaches us why we learn in the world around us and how we constantly learn from it. And ethics, do I even need to say anything? The ethical stances of everyone who worked at any of these schools I went to should be enough of a reason to show why ethics should be a core thing for people to learn. It's good to learn why certain things are ethically good and why certain things are ethically wrong. Where does one derive their ethical views if they have never been taught anything about ethics? And what else can I honestly say? Well, I will say this. Pink Floyd, I think, said it best when they said, all in all, you're just another brick in the wall. Because in a way, that's all you are for anyone, for any of these school structures today. For some, you're just a walking dollar who's there for them to leech money off of. For some, you're just there for a government grant. And for some, you're just there to for them to indoctrinate as another onward Christian soldier going to fight against the devil. And yeah, that's all that can be said. Is really what it comes down to is our educational structures are just as corrupt as our government structures, and in a way that's worse because with government, we know it's screwing us, but it's screwing us in the here and the now. When you're screwing over a younger generation, you're screwing over the future. And it really does depress me to see the world like this. Alright, I got about 4 minutes to go on here, so I just want to say I did do the isolation tank again, and expect that video up either later tonight or tomorrow, because having some big troubles with my regular camera. Instead of, I might have to just refilm the whole thing with my web camera. But I will say this: the tank this time around, man, it blew my mind. Like, oh man, if I were to see anyone at that religious school again, I would straight up tell them, "Come with me. We're doing this tank. I want your mind to be open up. I want you to really kind of get a new perspective on the world around you." But yeah, that video will definitely be up soon about the isolation tank. And if any of you are not familiar with my videos on the sensory deprivation chamber, the isolation tank, whatever I've come to call it on this channel, you can call it anything. You can call it a float pod for all I care. Go check out some of my videos, because I've been coming a long way from starting to do the whole tank experience, and I think there is no and after this last experience, I've come to the conclusion, as let this be a little sneak peek at the next video that should be up later tonight. I've come to the conclusion that there is no greater sense of freedom that you will ever get from anything that I have gotten from getting out of the tank from this experience. So yeah, I'll have that video up later, and another thing is, look, I might actually have some of the guys from the float place on here sometime, so that should be pretty good if I could get them on here. Had some really cool discussions that hopefully I'll be able to talk about in that video. But dang, what else is there to say? Nothing really. Just go check me out on Facebook at the Adorable Anarchist World. Also check out my other Facebook page, Ska Libertarians, if you love that good old-fashioned ska music. For all my fedora capitalists out there. And anyways, to close off, this is Mitchell Wiechek, trying to remain optimistic in the age of imperialism.